was trying to kill something inside of me that had hurt the most people that I loved. And so history repeated itself again at 30, and I found myself having an abortion. And they looked to see, because I'd been pregnant with twins now twice, and sure enough, I had twins in both uteruses. We had a big family, 6 girls, and I was 5th, and both parents owned businesses. Very involved in our church and community, so there was a lot of life going on, a lot of people in and out, and kind of a holy chaos. Because of the work that my parents did and the busyness of it, there was we were just kind of all over the place. So we were very adventurous and played outside like kids do, and watched as the older sisters' friends came in and out. So it was active, good family, good life. When I was 5, actually, in the playing in the neighborhood, first episode was being molested in a neighbor's storeroom, and he was a high school boy, and he was playing hide and seek with me, and so it was an invasion, and I didn't know what to do, and I never told anybody. At the age of 15, fell in love and was kind of hanging around a crowd that the standards were not quite the same, and because I could just kind of roam the neighborhood, you know. I'd go further than I should have gone on my Trail 90 Honda. I ended up losing my virginity, which was a golden rule of mine. And it was to somebody that I loved, but that was still breaking a golden rule. I became pregnant at 15, and it was a shock to the family. We were planning to get married and have the baby, but my family was like, no, this is not the plan that is for your life, and we're not going that direction. You can either choose that or no family. And I couldn't imagine my life without my family, and that was too big of a leap for me, and I followed a course of an abortion. But what I didn't realize was the devastating blow that abortion would have on a 15-year-old, and nobody did.
We understand that He is worthy to be praised. Amen? Because He is awesome. He made everything. He spoke that which was not as though it were, and it became. And He spoke you and me into the wombs of our mother with plans for us to have good success. Amen? And we became. And guess what? that's the path on which we now walk. The enemy worked to deceive us. The enemy worked to sideline us. The enemy worked to kill, steal, and destroy from us. But our King relentlessly pursued each and every one of us and snatched us from the pit of hell and set our feet upon the rock of our salvation, and His name is Jesus Christ. Amen?
I fell into a depression after the first abortion, and 4.5 months later found myself pregnant, but the doctor said, no, it's not pregnant again. You have a double uterus. You were pregnant in both sides, and we have to get the other one. And so I had to go into a late-term abortion at 15, and remember my mom sitting by me, and the sound of it, and I was awake. So it was something that my soul could not deal with, my mind, my will, and my emotions. And I had to leave that guy, and so that was my best friend, and I felt different from everybody else from that point on. So social life became less quality because my confidence level in myself and who I was down the tubes. Drugs became more a part of the picture. I ended up getting pregnant, and I was pregnant with twins, miscarried one, had my daughter. 2.5 years later, after the birth of my other son, I found myself getting a divorce. We were both so full of baggage that had never been dealt with, and we were immature, and we just could not mingle the two. And so I was a single mom with 2 children in cosmetology school and did not know how to handle the weight of what I had on me. My family that loved me saw a picture of a family that did not look anything like the family that they wanted my children to have and grow up in. So my children were ripped out of my life. To be told that I was unfit to be a mom, and I didn't know what I had done. So it was hard to breathe.
But the drugs developed a stronger and stronger hold on me, to where it got to where they were my focus. That was all I cared about. You know, I couldn't go the whole day without getting high. I could go the whole day without doing anything else, without seeing my kids, or but I couldn't make it through a day without getting high. And at that point, they consumed me, and it did cause me to lose my kids to CPS. And instead of, making the choice then to do something about it, I fell deeper into it and got on more drugs and did them constantly, trying to numb everything that I was going through.
Right before I got to the mission, I was in and out of jail. I had caught charges. I was doing drugs. Pretty much, I was not walking godly, and I was crying out. I was at my last straw, just looking for God, looking for a way. I thought, how am I going to make it in this life? Or is this all that it's about? I had lost my children. I had lost my house. I had lost my car. I had nothing.
And at 30, I found myself pregnant. He was a drug dealer. It was not a good situation, and I was at that point strung out on methamphetamine on the needle. And I had done 12 different rehabs, hospitals, jails, and psych wards. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with me, except it hurts really bad. They diagnosed me with 5 different antisocial, manic depressive, bipolar, all these things, which was a prescription for pharmaceuticals and drugs. So, and the drugs were led to the drugs, and it was all legal, illegal. Which one's better? Which one's worse? And it was just a mixed up world.
That was just the gateway to other drugs. The pills led to the needle, because you get rid of the pill. I mean, you can only get so high, and then you go to the needle, and then you don't do any other drugs. Everything you do is that way.
I was trying to kill something inside of me that had hurt the most people that I loved. And so history repeated itself again at 30, and I found myself having an abortion. And they looked to see, because I'd been pregnant with twins now twice, and sure enough, I had twins in both uteruses, so I had to have a double abortion. And I saw my babies on the sonogram. So at that point, I just kind of left. Life just was really hard. So you can't see a day past the day you're in. And I had a relationship with God as a little girl, and remember talking to him and remember his presence, and it was very strong, and remember wanting to help people. And just that call that I've felt all my life has been there since I was 5. So I was continued to want to help people. And the path that it took me on, I think that's what kept me alive.
I remember saying I want to care about something. I didn't care that I was gonna be dirty when I went to my probation officer. I didn't care that I was going to prison for 14 years. Just like when my probation officer came here and I was nervous and stuff, and after I talked to her, I was like, I cared about that. I cared about going to prison. I don't want to go to prison.
When I just realized God told me, I've given you a gift of faith, Aaron. I've given you a gift to want to change. And so I was like, okay, well, at least I have that one thing, and I do love God. So those were 2 things that I could love about myself. At the midst of the worst part of my life, I was in love with somebody. It was a very tumultuous relationship because I was unhealthy. I didn't attract a healthy person. But we did love each other, and he was a good man, and he did not do drugs. And he would listen to me, and he would believe in me, and he'd say, your kids need you. Your kids are going to need you someday. There's no judge in the country that would ever keep you from your kids if you'll just do okay. And I cried for probably a few years. It was the first time that I let out all the tears that had been held back. So I found out at the age of 39, in the middle of my worst possible condition, that I was pregnant, and I was absolutely not supposed to be able to be pregnant because it was medically not possible, the doctors had said. I had so much compassion for this baby. Like, something's wrong, something's not right. Why would you put this here in this body? And the Lord said he knew what he was doing. God was preparing me to be the mom that he He says the gifts and callings of God are irrevocable. He doesn't change his mind because he called me a mom when he gave me my first 2 children. And even though I had pushed it away, or society or people didn't think I was fit for it, he said he knew. But nonetheless, God, you said, go search your soul. He said, because if you don't, and you're just thinking this or saying it and you don't really mean it, it can be 7 times harder. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. So I did, and I went and did some soul searching. God was bringing deliverance and taking things out of my life that did not need to be there. The battle that I went through, my whole family went through. They weren't against me. The enemy was against my whole family. And they loved very much, so much that they weren't going to put up with me looking like that. And I watched as God transformed a home and just serve the 2 people that had taken step after step, being up at 4 o'clock in the morning wondering, was I eating? Was I dead in a ditch?
Wow Warehouse, 815 North Grandview in Odessa. See you soon.
The Lord gave me a spirit of wisdom and understanding and opened the eyes of my heart so that I could see them the way He saw them, so that I could receive from them. And so that little boy got to grow up under 5 wonderful brother-in-laws. And, you know, when God melted that mountain, He tapped me on the shoulder and said, I want you to go to Mission Messiah. Thought I was coming here to give. And again, He said, no, you need to receive. We're going to do some more cleaning up. He teaches us in all the places that He puts us.
I can't do this anymore. Just help me. I can't do this anymore.
And it wasn't until I ended up in jail that I sobered up. And even then, I want to say I resisted, like, going to God then, because I didn't want to be one of those people that went to jail and got jailhouse religion. But I sat in jail for a long time. And when I finally gave in and started getting in my Bible and everything, that's when things started happening for me.
So that I could then pick up the pieces and the fragments of my life, which is what God told me to do, and watch as God transform their lives in this place. Those who have not been loved on, not felt that love, and who didn't know how to receive that love, and who didn't know how to have relationships, and who didn't know how to do community, who didn't know how to be out in public or work or get up and go. Like, that's life. It's kids who had never had a safe place to be, play and be safe and love it. And I really never thought I would love this place on 2nd Street. It's been 15 years. We've seen lots of miracles since the day He started moving in my life. And miracles take place when you're a mess. They can take place. There's not a perfect place to be in Him. Just in Him is the perfect place to be. He's in the restoration business, and the biggest miracle is the heart.
And then I ended up getting out of jail. And even the way that happened, I do believe it was all God. I have got to see my kids again and working on reestablishing a relationship with them.
I knew in my heart that I had to just stay strong because I knew that God had a plan for me. They're here with me now, all 3 of them. So only God could have done that.
I have a source, a never-ending, overflowing source of love, and all I have to do is ask. And now I have a son, a brand new baby, and it's just wonderful. But I couldn't do it without God.
He's very interested in our families. And so he's like, I made you to be a mom. This is the house. When I finally learned how to become a mom was sitting at my 90-year-old mother's feet and serving her in her last days and being my dad's daughter. That's when I truly saw the restoration in my 2 older kids and my 7 grandkids. It's been wonderful. My son is going to graduate a good high school next year. He's been on the varsity football, he's track, and he's gifted in artisan, and he's a good son. And my daughter's just such a wonderful mom. And I've watched as my son has just become a wonderful husband and father, and God bring them through the fires and the waters. And so what's next?
Spring is blooming at WOW. New gifts, jewelry, pottery, and home decor pieces are arriving daily. Spring is in the air and color makes everything better. Fresh, beautiful, and fun. You will find it always at WOW. WOW Warehouse, 815 North Grandview in Odessa. See you soon.
He introduced me to Heidi Baker through some teachings, and she is a mama to Africa, Mozambique, who is a missionary called from California.
That's why we're different. And then we teach all the time, just receive the love of the Father.
God did this tremendous miracle in her life, and since then has planted 10,000 churches and growing in Africa. God does salvations, deliverances, and healings on witch doctors all in one setting, and I got to actually witness that. So I actually had an opportunity to go after 10 years of desiring, never thinking that it would even be possible. He actually took me there with my son to Africa, which was over the top. And we got to hang side by side with her for 10 days and watch her do life in the dirt with the poor. What God did was so amazing there as I watched these kids that I read stories about in her books and got to hang out with them. To me, meeting Amina, who's a little cosmetologist, she has a salon, and we got to do Heidi's hair together. The stories that I read about these kids, and now I'm actually hanging out with one of them who has a salon that Mama Heidi, got her, and she's clinging to me saying, would you please teach me to cut your hair, kind of hair? I went to the salon. It was the highlight of my life, going to Salon Shalom and hanging out with the Mina, and they had a lawn chair for their chair, and it was borrowed, and they had no plumbing in there, and I found out she didn't have scissors. I just burned. She wanted help. My first chance to try to get to help somebody, which was my whole life, and I was like, oh, what do we do? God, help. So I was just thinking, how are we going to get color to her? How are we going to train her? I just feel that God birthed this vision of this Harvest Vocational Exchange program, because it'd be too expensive for me to go and leave my family and go and train there. So I'd love for her to come here and get the vocational training. The vision is tangible. Faith is substance, and His word is true. So He will do it, and He is doing it.
You know, I smoked weed so frequently, ADHD medicine, and then all the psych meds. And she said, you must come be my face of the Chanel Girl from 19 to 21. But in that world, when you're around, in Dallas especially, where everybody is so rich and everybody has a different accent from a different country, so the drugs and the guns and just everything is just, it looks so beautiful.
We hope that you have been blessed to see the reality of Jesus' power to transform a life. We would also ask that if you know a woman or a mother and a child in need of help, that you might go to missionmessiah.org and find the information and make it available to that person. We would also like to express to you that we're always in need of prayer warriors and financial support to make these wonderful things happen. May the Lord bless you.